Welcome everyone to another episode of The Creative Minds. Joining me today is Lauren. Lauren, please start off by telling us a bit more about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. I've been
Of
excited to
course.
come on the podcast. I love your energy,
Of
and
course.
I think it's really nice to connect with people who are clearly so passionate about what they do. So, I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Impact School,
Mm,
and our mission is to empower companies to
mm,
deliver life-changing results globally while
mm.
making millions at the same time. And so,
Um,
we're all about helping people who are good at what they do serve more people, retain more clients,
mm.
and yeah, teach what they know online. So
Yeah.
it's a great thing to do. And I'm just at Lauren Tickner on all social media. You can find me there. So I know we're gonna have a great conversation
Yeah.
today.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. By the way, I kind of told you this briefly earlier on, but I was actually having a show early on with a guy called Quentin, and he's the one who was like, you have to interview this girl. She's like kicking ass and she's like really awesome in what she does. Straightforward, 2 points. I was like, I had to. So I'm so glad that we connected and then I reached out. Um, so now briefly knowing about you and what you do in your company, like you, I know earlier on you started your journey in fitness. Can you just walk us through that, going to fitness and then going and creating impact school and how that kind of transition was for you?
Yeah, it was great. At first, people were kind of like, what the hell are you doing? Because a lot of
Yeah.
my audience in the beginning were following me because they were wanting workout tips and
Yeah.
eating tips, and they wanted to know, like, what am I eating every day and how am I training? And what was really interesting was because I had built a personal brand, I also had people following me who wanted to do the same thing
Mm,
as me. And so
mm,
this literally only came about because of demand. I never got into business to do what I do now.
okay.
I was in the fitness space and I was working with a lot of big brands. And basically these companies decided that they wanted to go more mainstream with the
Mm,
quote unquote influencers they were working with. So
yeah.
they stopped working with myself. A load of my friends they had millions of followers on
Mm,
YouTube. However, their audiences
mm,
were exclusively like bodybuilding related, right? And so then my friends were noticing that I was posting these things on my Snapchat back
mm,
then, which was
yeah.
like, okay, here's this free challenge that you can join and you can win $500.
Yeah.
My friends were like, Lauren, like, how can I do this? And I was thinking, like, guys, you don't need to join this challenge. Like, you can easily make thousands by launching your own. So I built all
Yeah.
these funnels. And then what I could do is I could take the link for my funnel and then I could send it to them and they could sign up and then I could get an affiliate commission each month of like
Mm,
$33 or something. So
mm,
I gave them the funnels and I told them like, do this, this, and this.
yeah.
And I was like, hell yeah, I'm making like a couple $100 extra per month of affiliates. Like my fitness business was, I'd say, in the low six figures at this point. And it was just fun. And some of these guys then launched and they just basically followed the same dates that I was
Yeah.
posting stuff. They would just pretty much trail me and
Yeah.
post the same thing. And two of the guys made six figures within their
Wow.
first couple of weeks of doing it. And at
Wow.
that, I realized, like, oh crap, like I think I've got something here.
Mm,
But I thought, well, I don't really know if this is going to be possible for anyone
mm,
else because they don't have a big following. So then I wrote this
yeah.
ebook, which was
Yeah.
like how to have a successful online program.
Mm,
And then this one girl replied to me like, hey, Lauren, I'd be happy to review it. And back then she had about 2,000 on YouTube. Now she has hundreds of thousands on all her social media. But back
yeah.
then, small following. She was a primary school teacher teaching maths in Australia, and she was from America. And she had to move to Australia and teach there because it would have made her more money, etc. And she dreamed of coming back to the US.
Mm,
So I actually worked with her one on one, took her business to multiple six figures per
mm,
year. And that was when I realized, like, I've got something here. Now
yeah.
I need to turn it into a productized service. And so basically that's how Impact School was born, but it was
Interesting.
never meant to be like this.
Interesting. So then what is the service that you provide to them? So you kind of started off in the affiliate marketing space, but then I
Not
kind
at
of
all.
lost you
No, no,
there. Yeah.
it was not affiliate marketing. I literally had these funnels that I built for my fitness business, and I
Okay.
just gave the share link, right? So in
Got
inside of
you.
these funnel builders, you can
Yeah.
just say like your friends or your clients or something, hey,
Yeah.
I've built these funnels for you, like click the link and it's going to import into your account. So I
Okay.
basically just gave them the funnels that I was actually using and told them like, just, instead of saying like get toned, say get
Yeah.
shredded. These were guys who had a male audience, right? And
Yeah.
so they launched that and they absolutely crushed it the first
Yeah.
time. So I was making like a maximum of $500 a month from affiliate. It was
Yeah.
never really something I was doing.
Okay.
But the reason that was important was because basically it's how Impact School really began.
Yeah. Yeah. So what made you then want to take this full time? Like, why do you care about serving other people and getting them to grow their own businesses? Why do you care so much?
Well, for me, I always cared about fitness at first.
Mm,
And through my passion, I was able to create a business.
mm,
And then I realized after I started helping other people with business, I actually prefer business than I like fitness. Because what I honestly felt like I was just
mm,
working with my friends and I was showing my friends what to do. Because
mm.
they were like-minded people who genuinely were really passionate
Yeah. Yeah.
about serving others. Whereas like when I was in fitness, a lot of people were trying to lose weight and get skinny, maybe for the wrong reasons. And I realized
Mm,
that through helping these other people who
mm,
were my peers, they
mm.
were then able to help the people that I would have otherwise helped. And so I got
Okay.
to have a big, big ripple effect through helping the people that help the people. And
Okay.
so that's really how I got into it. And,
Okay.
I've never looked back since then. I
Yeah.
honestly slowly dwindled out what I was doing in fitness
Yeah.
and then went full time into this.
Yeah. You go to university yourself?
I was studying on the UK's #1 business degree at the time of having my fitness business, but I dropped
Yeah.
out. None of my professors had ever had their own business.
Oh, okay. Okay. And how did your parents take that or your family take that, you dropping off?
To be fair, like by this point, I was already doing well in the fitness industry.
Okay.
I was kind of having banter with my dad, like, oh, look, I'm making more money than you now. And
Yeah.
so he didn't really have anything to say. My
Yeah.
parents never really cared about uni because, like, my dad didn't go and my mum went to some, like, really crappy university in
Yeah.
London. And so they weren't fussed about me going.
Mm,
And my parents were never really, like, strict on me or pushed me to do anything because my younger brother, he's 2 years younger than me,
mm,
so he's disabled. And so I had a lot of freedom from a very young age and kind of
mm,
parented myself to quite a
mm,
large degree. And I think that's
mm.
why I just became so independent so quickly.
Yeah.
And I realized like, early on, but basically when I was 18, I worked in a corporate job, hated it, quit that, realized I wanted to have my own business because I couldn't work for someone
Mm,
else.
mm,
That was
mm,
basically
mm,
how.
mm. So how did you kind of learn the skills? How did you know what is it that you need to do at every given moment in time for you to grow and create, for example, Impact School and continue growing since you started the launch of it?
Well, I started in fitness, right? So I made all the mistakes
Yeah.
possible through having that business. I didn't
Mm,
just decide that I wanted to have a business consulting company. Like I actually had the business first
okay.
before I
Okay.
went into consulting. And
Okay.
so how did I learn everything in fitness?
Yeah.
Well, I remember one day I was scrolling on Facebook and I saw this ad and it was two guys who were big, big business owners in the fitness industry. And it was a mastermind in LA in this place called like Chino Valley or something, right? And I'd never been to LA before and I really wanted to
Mm,
go. So I went on the page and like I applied and then they
mm,
automatically accepted me and took
mm,
me to a checkout page and it was $10,000.
mm,
And I was sat in a co-working space
mm.
and I kind of like gasped, I guess. And this one guy, he like turned to me and he's like, "Are you good?" I was like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
whew, I'm good. Just kind of trying to make some business decisions." He's like, "Talk to me. I've been in business for 10 years."
Yeah.
And then I told him what was going on, and he was like, "Well, Lauren, like, you know what you need to do." And I'm like, "Yeah,
Mm,
I know what I need to do." So I got my
yeah.
debit card out and just paid for the event and just went. And so that was how I learned a lot of the stuff in the beginning stages that really took
Mm,
me from doing like,
mm,
I'd say a maximum of like, I think my biggest month that I had at that point was like 25K,
mm,
but it was like up and down. So then I'd make
mm,
25K, then I'd do like 2K, and then I'd make
mm.
like 22K or something, and then I'd
Yeah.
make like 5K, right? And at that event, that was how I really learned like how to systematize things, kind
Mm,
of, and like
mm,
get the things in a row. And yeah,
mm,
since then, I mean, I've probably spent like 700K on
mm,
coaches, consultants,
mm,
agencies,
mm,
masterminds,
mm.
etc.
So at Impact School, can you just explain further more, like what do you do for your clients? So let's say I'm a client coming over to Impact School. I'm like, listen, Lauren, I've been following your content, learning more about you personally, and then how you run your business. I'm like, I want to jump on and work with you. What is it that you, for example, offer for me specifically?
Yes, so we have a couple of different offerings. Everything that
Mm,
we do is one-on-one.
yeah.
And so it depends where the revenue is at, right? So we'll
Mm,
always find out where someone's revenue is. If it's below 20 grand a month, Then we have a program called Validate that people can go through,
Mm.
and then they work one-on-one to get their
Mm.
business to that 20 grand a month mark, and we guarantee every single client result at Impact School. So everyone that works with us has guaranteed results. And then the second option is one-on-one consulting. And this is whereby we really take them through systematizing their business, adding $1 million systems so that they as the entrepreneur can get out of day-to-day and really ensure that they're able to focus on scaling the company and they have the right people in the team. Because my belief is that systems run the business and let people run those systems. And so the guarantee on that one is that will double their revenue.
Okay. And very much recently as well too, I've noticed like on your post on Instagram, you were talking about hiring, the hiring process, and sharing some content that people are talking about hiring. So when you were in like Impact School, when did you start to realize that, okay, you know what, I need to start to delegate and not do everything myself? And you talked about in one of the interviews I watched on YouTube as well too, some of the challenges that you had with hiring the wrong people on your team. So what were some lessons that you learned with regards to hiring overall?
I mean, the worst thing to do is hire cheap people. I will never do that again. I will not hire people from places in which, you know, money is like
their driving
I will never make the mistake of hiring people whereby like it's based upon on paying the cheapest labor. That's what I'm trying to say. Like I will never do that. Never. I will pay for quality and I will hire the best. And in the beginning, obviously you can't do that, but I should have not hired people so randomly and sporadically. Instead, I should have just sucked it up for a little bit longer, done it myself, so that then I could afford to pay someone a really world-class salary so that I can get the best of the best. Because, you know, when you buy cheap, you buy twice, right? Same thing goes with hiring. When you hire the worst person, then you're going to have to just come back in and plug all the holes. And then it takes twice as long. It's super confusing. Everything's messy. Someone has to fix and then they can start the job. So you asked a few questions there regarding when did I start hiring? I mean, look, I messed up so much. So that's probably not the most relevant thing that I could talk about. The thing that's more important is like asking yourself, is this a leveraged job that I have whereby it's me and I'm like the one individual genius and then I have 1,000 helpers, or would I rather actually build a company? And sometimes you have to get really honest with yourself about that.
And when you're kind of hiring, what specifically would you say you'd look for in someone joining your team?
It really depends on the role. Because in the hiring process, the things you look for are very different depending on the role that you're hiring for. So if it's a salesperson, you want to look for someone that's really, really hungry, that maybe is a bit cheeky, has a bit of banter. Whereas if you're hiring an accountant, you don't really want that, right? Someone that's going to dot their T's and dot their I's and cross their T's. So it's very different for the role that you're hiring, right? So whenever we have people come in for a role, and this is not necessarily my area, I don't get involved with the hiring process till the last stage. However, the first thing that we have them do is obviously submit their CV and their application form. And then if they don't meet the requirements of the basic skills, then they don't get through to the next round. You know, a simple thing is like, are they 100% fluent in English, right? We're an English speaking company. Like our clients speak English. If they can't speak English, it's not going to work, right? There's no hard feelings. It's just the truth. And there's been some great people that we wanted to hire, but they don't speak very good English, so we can't hire them, right? And so then we point them in the direction of maybe one of our clients who has a company which is fully Finnish language or Spanish or French, right? Like we always want to direct them to go to the right place that's best for them. And then so we have a 5-stage hiring process. There's a full video on my YouTube channel, which is just Lauren Tickner, or Impact School podcast. You can listen there, which is where Nor, who's my COO, she breaks down like the exact 5 phases that we take every single person through, every applicant. But as an example, like, we don't just think, oh yeah, like I think I know this person who could do my social media. Instead, we put out proper job listings and we hire people that are right for the role. And then, for example, like recently we hired 2 new salespeople and we had 163 interviews. Before that, there was more than 500 applicants.
Wow.
We don't just hire the first one. We want the best only. Look, we deliver the best results, right? So we can't have just subpar people on us.
So what would you say is the biggest challenge that you're currently facing? Or I mean lesson learned, I would say, because you did also mention it once as well, like it's always personal development. It's almost always like, how can I learn from this
Sure.
experience? And I
Yeah.
really love that how you said, I think you actually chose the word personal development. The way I phrase it is like lesson learned, which is an interesting kind of perspective. So what would you say is the biggest challenge that you faced starting off or like building impact school, and then kind of how did you overcome it?
Well, the biggest problem that we have right now is finding really good salespeople to handle all of our leads.
Okay.
So when you solve one problem really well, then
Mm,
you create another problem. So
mm,
we really, really have solved the problem of lead generation very well. So
yeah.
now we have the problem of taking care of all of those leads, right? So to your point though, that's a good problem to have. So it's not necessarily relatable for a lot of people. And
Yeah.
if it is relatable, then they're probably going to be a very good fit to be a client for Impact School,
Yeah.
because that's one of the big leading indicators that you're bloody good at what you do. So
Mm,
with regards to your point, there's been, I mean, someone asked me the other day, like, and I'd say the biggest question I'm probably asked is, if you could go back again to the beginning and start over, what would you do differently? And
yeah.
frankly, the only thing that I would do that's different is I would go back to the beginning and make all the mistakes that I made more quickly so I could
Faster.
get those
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to your point, I don't even know where to go with
Yeah.
this.
Mm,
I think
yeah.
there's too many answers. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
screwed up everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I don't want to just talk more about business. I also like talk about some other aspects as well too. So more talking towards like relationship and building relationships, whether it's work or outside of work. So I've also come to realize very much recently you're very blunt in different aspects of life, and you're keeping it real. Always on Instagram, which I really like. And you did talk about you love for reading books and like you're going into more audiobooks, but there was one thing that really kind of sparked my interest, and I'm really realizing that a lot around the people around me, my age, our age, kind of, I would say, the idea of like relationships, whether it's friendship or real relationships, like a partner relationship kind of thing. So you did write like down or mention a few points of certain books that you've learned or like you've come across and read about relationships. So what is your intake on finding like the right partner or building the right friendships? I mean, let's start off with like partner and then we can go friendships.
Yeah, so I literally thought I was going to be single for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I didn't think that there was anyone that was out there for me.
Yeah.
And I read this book called Calling in the One.
Mm,
And I first read this in the beginning of 2020 after I'd come back from Mexico and was living in London by myself. And there was like an 8-month period where like I
yeah.
didn't even touch another person
Yeah.
because of the lockdowns. And so I listened to this audiobook and it said, write a list of the non-negotiables in your partner.
Yeah.
And so I wrote a list of more than 100 things.
Yeah.
And then the following year, I was then traveling with a friend of mine who has a big travel Instagram account. And I
Mm,
was with him and his girlfriend, and she told
yeah.
me that she had done the same thing. And I'd forgotten that I'd done that. So I revisited the list and then added some things there.
Mm,
And I made a commitment to myself that I
mm,
will not settle for anything less. It's
mm,
just like, for example, like when I travel now, right? If I'm
yeah.
going to travel with a friend of mine who maybe doesn't have the money to pay for the things that I want to do, I
Yeah.
will pay for that person because I don't want to lower my standards just because they can't do the thing,
Mm,
right? Like, totally cool to do that. Like, I
yeah.
want to do the thing that I want to do. I've worked very hard to do this.
Mm,
And so I'm willing to share like that.
yeah.
And same thing was like with regards to any non-negotiable. Like, for example, I will not eat really disgusting junk food just because it's the only thing that I can find, right? Like, I
Mm,
will make sure that I can get the thing that I need and that I want.
mm,
And like, that's not in a kind of selfish type of way. It's just that I realized, like, in my life for so many years, I would negotiate the standard. And that's why I constantly wasn't always happy, and I would work really hard and I wouldn't feel fulfilled. And it's
mm,
because I was never allowing myself to feel
mm,
the fulfillment and the actual happiness of what I had achieved. And I enjoyed the process, but then I would never celebrate. So just going back to your point, I made a list, and then I would meet some guys and they'd be really nice and we'd get on well. And there would just be something that wasn't quite right. And then
mm,
I revisited my list and I was like, right, it's because like he doesn't share this same value with me. Like, I was
yeah.
seeing this guy and he was amazing. And then he just didn't want to travel. But I love to travel, and he wouldn't travel. And then I knew that it wasn't going to work, right? And that was
Yeah.
one of my list that was important. So
Yeah.
then, anyways, I ended up meeting someone he is amazing. Like, I'm so in love with him that I can't even explain. And I've never had this before. And it's
Mm.
because I didn't settle. I didn't
Mm.
settle for what was okay. And that was actually the reason why I ended my last proper relationship a few years ago, because I heard my friend on a podcast say, why settle for good when you can have great?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Did
know?
you,
And so,
yeah.
yeah,
Did you, I mean, did you ever think that what you wrote down or the expectations that you have in a guy are just too high, that they do not exist?
everyone told me my standards were too high.
Yeah.
I don't need 1,000. I need
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
One,
Okay.
right? And so
Yeah.
it's like you don't need, let's say you have this like dream house in your mind that you really want to live in,
Yeah.
right? And it has like 100 different things on your checklist. That's totally fine, because
Mm.
you're gonna find that one day.
Mm.
Just depends on your time horizon. Like, so for me, I was in no rush. I was even planning to take an entire year off
Yeah.
dating someone.
Yeah.
And the day before my year began was when I met my now boyfriend.
No way. Okay. That's cool. And
I should say 37 minutes into the first.
awesome. That's awesome. By the way, I know that you also live in Dubai, but you also travel as well too. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm curious about like how do you meet people in Dubai? Like, I mean, everyone's just so busy in work. So I personally came from Toronto, so Toronto was like more of like chill. Here in Dubai, it's like still getting to understand like the whole system and how you get the chance to connect and meet the people. How did that work for you personally?
I don't know if you mean relationships or like friendships or both,
Both.
but like, you
Yeah.
just go up to someone and talk to them. Like, I will just be
Yeah.
walking around outside and I'll say like,
Okay.
oh, hey. Then I'll just give someone a compliment, ask them a question. That's
Okay.
it.
Okay. And with regards to, let's say, friendship. So in your journey, I've also learned too that you kind of cut off people and brought in new people into your life. What makes you say that this person I want to keep? What makes you say that this person I kind of want to let go of?
For me, it's just about values, right? And
Mm.
like, I never really intentionally cut people off. It's just,
Yeah.
for example, if they don't share the same values as me,
Yeah.
then, and if I don't genuinely enjoy my time with them, like, I'm just not
Yeah.
going to waste my
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it's not fair on either person, because I'm standing there like, oh my God, this is hell. And then
Yeah.
they're there like, with me who's not fully present, which isn't cool.
Yeah.
And so it's not fair on either person.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just make sure, like, I check in with myself. Am I enjoying myself right now? Yes. Okay, cool. Let's continue. No,
Mm.
if not, let's leave.
Awesome. So what would you say your values are?
I have a good amount of values, but for me, the biggest
Top.
thing is
Yeah.
freedom, fulfillment. I really need to be feeling fulfilled while I'm doing the
Mm.
things that I'm doing. And
Mm.
I truly believe in living a life of freedom, in,
Mm.
health, in where you are,
Mm.
in not having any attachments to things that you don't need to have attachments
Mm.
to. Those things are really fundamental to
Mm.
me.
Mm. And what does fulfillment mean to you?
It's just really about feeling the thing that what you're doing is rewarding, and it has an impact, it's making a difference. Because
Mm.
you could be like really quote unquote successful,
Yeah.
right? If you hate every moment of it, like, is that really
Mm.
success?
So what would you say is like your ultimate like life goal? Like,
Well, it depends upon which level of time you look at it, right?
mm.
Because the goal that I have for the next 5 years is very different than the goal that I have for the next 15 years. And the goal that I
Yeah.
have for the next 15 years is very different from my goal over the next 20 years.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like the next 15 years, my goal is that I am currently in the process of building $1 billion business of businesses,
Mm.
which each make a positive impact. And the way that
Mm.
I define positive impacts is that it's making genuine change in the world of health or education. And
Mm.
so these are the areas that are very, very important to me.
Mm.
So for example, I was recently given an opportunity to invest in a crypto gaming company,
Yeah.
and to get a 90% discount. And this is pretty much guaranteed to make millions, right? And
Yeah.
so at that point, I had to look at my values, and I had to look at the direction in which I want to go in with my life.
Mm.
And it was very, very tempting.
Mm.
And the guy that I texted, he's a big mentor to me. He's one of the people that I met at the event that I spoke about, the mastermind, when I was
Yeah.
19 or 18. And I said to him, I was like, I'm genuinely conflicted right now. Like, how do
Mm.
you make decisions like these?
Yeah.
And he told me his thesis. And I realized like mine doesn't align with that. So I'm going to say no to this opportunity. And instead, I invested that money in a Web3 health tech company because it's
Mm.
more aligned with like what I want to do. And
Okay.
that one might not make money for like 5-10 years, but I'm fine with that because I'm here in
Mm.
focusing on making the impact first, the positive impact first, as per my
Okay.
definition.
Do you believe that like life has a purpose?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think so. I think it's one of those questions which, like, I think a lot about this. And I remember being in school and
Mm.
we would be discussing the topics of like the meaning of life
Mm.
in philosophy class. And like, I was always so curious about this and no one else seemed to really care. And I
Yeah.
was always wondering, like, why does no one care? And
Yeah.
I must say, I haven't spent as much time pondering over this
Mm.
the last 5 years as I used to. But I think that, I mean, look, we could talk about this for a lot of hours. I don't know how much in depth you want me to go into. To answer
Yeah.
your question, yes.
What is your definition of success? Like, what does it mean for you?
For me, success is all about making a positive impact on other people's lives and doing it from a place of genuine care.
Mm.
That's really what success is like. And I believe that money is a byproduct of value. And so when you lead with that, you're destined to make a good amount of money.
Thank you so much, by the way, for your time. I tried to keep it like short, go through a few questions that I have in my mind. But thank you again so much for your time. And for everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you all have an amazing, awesome rest of your day.